And welcome back to Radio DMG, Area DMG. I'm your host, Phil Wesley, the Mile High Mouth. And you kind of can't see me today because we're trying to do a different thing. It's my hand. Anyways, we set up a GoPro. And we set this, so this is going to be 1080p at 60 frames per second, which is actually a little bit more than YouTube can normally handle. But what we're going to talk today about is region locking. In Nintendo portables. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty of this. When Nintendo first came out a long time ago with the Game Boy, they did not have region locking on this great little device. In fact, so your copy of Legend of Zelda or your copy of Legend of Zelda from Japan would work on the same device. This is something that they did mainly so that they could ship more of these worldwide, because they didn't have to do any changes to it. Now, with the Famicom and the Super Famicom and with the Super Nintendo, there was lockout from that, even though those cartridges will still work for it. Like, this is an American Game Boy, and of course, I'm not sure how that's going to show up on this, but all your old Nintendo games will work on it. Look, is that? Oh, it came out a little weird. Hold on. Gotta love original equipment sometimes. There we go. May have to mess around with it a little bit, but older Game Boys will work on that. For example, there are all sorts of little differences between the two. You can hardly see that. Maybe you should make it full screen. But yeah, you can play Japanese games and American released games and European released games on the same system. That's how it used to be. And when you started out with the original DS, it was just that way too. It was only until we ended up with the DSi that Nintendo started doing these a little bit differently. Here is a DS Lite. This is the last region-free Nintendo system. And the DSi and the DSi XL are the first ones they did, which had some sort of region locking. Then, of course, this is passed on to their most recent things, being the 3DS and the 2DS. So, how do you identify these? How do you identify what's region locked and what's not? It's actually not too hard. Here's a stack of DS games and 3DS games. All these 3DS games are region locked. They'll only work on their respective territories. For example, what you need to do on these is look at the bottom part of the label. The bottom part of the label is a series of letters. On this one, it reads LNACTR AQEE-USA. The first two are like Latin and North America, although I think that might be different with some regions. Like if you go into South America, it might have something different before that. CTR is the product code number of the 3DS, the 3DS XL, and the well, actually not the same for it's not the same for 3DS and 3DS XL, but it is the same for the 3DS. The 3DS actually, its product name is CTR001, and then of course it's four-letter game identification, and then finally the region. I don't have any Japanese 3DS games or anything to demonstrate, but with all of these ones, the first letters are always going to be LNA, and then CTR, and then the last ones will be the region. And then of course your unique ones, like for example here for Kingdom Hearts, Dream Drop Distance, it's AKHE. For Theatrhythm, it's ATHE. For this Zelda, it's AQEE. I think some of the letters also have to do with your the publisher as well, but that's a little bit out of my pay grade. I don't know particularly the particulars on that. Let's go to our DS games. Here's a few DS games that are different regions. We have Bubble Bobble Double Shot and Bubble Bobble Double Shot, the European version and the American version. And we also have D-Blob 2 from THQ. And we have the American version and the European version. For these ones in particular, and then of course we have some Japanese games like this is Daigasu Band Brothers. Now, there's a thing to note about DS games. Some DS games are all region, and some are region locked. For example, anything that starts with the original DS and DS product number NTR is not region locked. It'll work on anything. This copy of Daigasu Band Brothers, and this copy of Bubble Bobble Double Shot, and this copy of Dragon Quest Monsters Joker 2, or this copy of Infinite Space will all work on any DS, 2DS, 3DS, DSi, etc. From anywhere. Anything that starts with NTR is not region locked. However, some items are region locked. These ones, this copy of D-Blob 2 starts with TWL. TWL is the original product name or product number for the DSi. Once you hit once you hit the stuff that says TWL, you're hitting region locks, and that's where it's more important. With these ones, unlike the additional letters they have on the 3DS, you have TWL, then the number for it, rather the name for it, and then the region at the end of it. So this would be TWL VD2E USA, TWL VD2V EUR, which would be Europe. JAP would be Japan. We see that. Sorry, JPN would be Japan, which we see on this. But this will still work on these. Now, here's the interesting thing. This is the European region D-Blob 2. The last thing that'll work in is, let's open this up here. The Nintendo DS and DS Lite. The DS Lite, it'll detect it. If you'll note, it has a little option for D-Blob 2. It'll show up in its menu screen, and you can play it, which we're not going to do too much of because we're just trying to show you a little bit of what happens with the region locking. Do I think region locking is fair? I think region locking is awful, because there are a lot of really great games that I'd like to play, and the PlayStation Vita and PlayStation Portable don't have region locking when it comes to their physical software. But yeah, D-Blob 2 will show up, and it's the same game that you'll find in the, let me turn that off. It's the same game as the US release. There's like a very little difference aside from maybe some language options or so. In some cases, there's no difference at all between the different regions. Now, this is the US version, which will work in everything. This is the European version, which I just used on the DS Lite. Now, let's go ahead and put that into a DSi. Yeah, I've got like a light source over here, so I accidentally bumped into that. Okay, we put the European version into this DSi. Let's see what happens when you turn it on. Now, keep in mind, doing this doesn't make these things explode or anything. Let's see. Nothing. See that little nut right there? Where it says there is nothing inserted into the game card slot. There totally is, and unfortunately, because the DSi and the DSi XL are the first parts where they started using region locking, which, by the way, is not a physical lockout, it's not a hardware issue, it's a firmware issue. If Nintendo wanted to, which I think they do this because they want to, I guess, somehow they feel that this protects their the people who publish on their systems, they could remove that region locking, which is in the firmware, and allow me to use games like this on there. I was kind of hoping that even the most recent stuff, like say the 2DS, I put in that game. Let me do that again. This is the European version of D-Blob 2, and let's see, popped into there. Nothing. Doesn't show up at all. Nothing inserted. And that's the way it is. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like Nintendo's going to change that anytime soon, although we can complain, we can petition them, and all sorts of things about it, because frankly, it's not fair that we exclude some games from that. I mean, the only reason I imported Daigasu Band Brothers is because I wanted to play that one and they didn't localize it. It's kind of unfair to me and to other consumers that we can't buy more recent 3DS games or some recent DSi games and not use them on our systems that we paid for. Oh well. But yeah, Japanese games that are DS Japanese games that start with NTR on their label. For example, like say this Infinite Space, or with Daigasu Band Brothers. If it says NTR, it'll be fine. NTR can go far. TWL, nope. TWL is like, oh well. Essentially, if you see a region, it's essentially anything that says TWL is region locked. So this game will only work in Europe. This one will only work in the Americas, and that's unfortunate. But yeah, when you're collecting and buying DS games, make sure to look for the NTR and the TWL. If you see the NTR, you're in the clear. If you see the TWL, it's very important that you take note of what region is at the end of it. I ended up with 2 copies of D-Block 2 because I went to a GameStop and I purchased this one. I was like, oh wow, that's only like $4. And then I rang it up and it's like, oh wow, it's actually by discount, it's only like $2.99. I was like, okay, that's fine. After tax, it'll be about $2. $2.99, or rather $3 after tax. So I was like, okay, that'll be fine. I take it home, doesn't work in anything. Then I realized region locking. So I went out and found another one for the sake of this video, just to explain it. So just be careful when buying anything that says TWL or anything that's a 3DS game, because you want to keep track of those regions. Until Nintendo lightens up and removes the region locking on their system, we're just going to have to put up with that. Or not. We could always import something or not buy their product. But not buying their product sometimes gives them justification to not bring it over, which is, it's an annoying situation. What we do need to do is petition and ask Nintendo to remove that region locking, because that region locking is just an annoying aspect of firmware that doesn't actually prevent piracy. Prevention of piracy they can already do with the firmware. They don't need to prevent people from importing these in, because, well, if the thing with like DVDs and Blu-rays, for example, DVDs are a different region. You have region 1, region 2, etc. With Blu-rays, Japan and the US are the same Blu-ray region, which would be region A. Now, there's a little trouble getting anime over because, well, being the same region, they're afraid of reverse importation. Now, with the DS and the 3DS, they're afraid of that as well. They're afraid people are just going to import in the American version, which could substantially be cheaper. Because in Japan, games and video games, where we're complaining about paying $30 or $40 for something, they're paying $80 to $90 equivalent for it. And well, I can understand that the market over there is a little bit niche. You don't see a lot of reverse importation of games in the US to Japan. You do see a lot of people who import games from Japan to the US, and those people are already paying a premium for it. So there really isn't anything that to benefit the consumer in region locking. In fact, it just hurts the consumer, and it makes me a little sad. But yeah, just so you know, this is the last region-free Nintendo console, or rather handheld. And if you're buying DS games, look for the first 3 letters. If it's NTR, you're in the clear. If it's TWL, it's a fail. And then you just need to make sure you check the region at the end. Got it? But yeah, NTR, clear. And that's pretty much it. I've been your host, Phil Wesley, the Mile High Mouth for Area DMG. And thank you for watching.